Labor Talks, recorded at Chippewa Valley Community Television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Good morning and welcome to Labor Talks. I'm Dean Scanlon, and today we have our special guest is Rob Ecker from the Wisconsin Registered Apprenticeship. Rob, pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, Rob, could you please tell us a little bit about who you're affiliated with and a little background on your work history?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me on Labor Talks today. As you mentioned, my name is Rob Ecker, and I am the Apprenticeship Training Representative, otherwise known as an ATR, for Northwest Wisconsin. The apprenticeship program in Wisconsin is over 100 years old, and I've only been working here about a year and a half. So
not 100 years yet.
No, not yet. I have a lot of history to learn yet. What I do is I actively help employers set up training programs to build skills in their workforce. And then the apprentices, as they move through, they're getting good paying jobs and a family sustaining wage.
And an experience in the workforce.
Right.
Correct. Okay, good. Okay, Rob, now you work with the Department of Workforce Development Bureau of Apprenticeship Standards. What exactly is that? What does it do? And who does it exactly help?
Okay. So that's all correct. It's kind of a long name.
Right.
But what it really is it's Wisconsin's nationally recognized registered apprenticeship program, and that's operated by the Department of Workforce Development and then the Bureau of Apprenticeship Standards within the workforce development.
Okay.
Registered apprenticeship in Wisconsin, as I said, is more than 100 years old. The laws that govern apprenticeship were actually made in 1911.
Okay. Did not know that. That's something I definitely want to follow up. So,
and even the federal government, when they wanted to build an apprenticeship program, they modeled their apprenticeship program on what Wisconsin was doing. Today, we help about 9,000 apprentices and 2,300 employers through the apprenticeship process and registering and getting everything done.
Okay. Now, Rob, I actually came in with the Wisconsin Laborers. I came through their apprenticeship program, which is similar to yours, but it doesn't go back as quite as far as 1911. And that's, like I say, that is interesting to know. Because your work is statewide, how do people in Eau Claire contact the Wisconsin Registered Apprenticeship Coordinators, or opportunity, excuse me?
Well, I'm one of 14 ATRs that work throughout the state. And if you think, so my territory covers 17 counties in northwestern Wisconsin. If you drew a line from Eau Claire to Ashland and then went west to the border, that pretty well summarizes the area that I cover. If someone out of my area would contact me, I get them the contact information for the ATR in their area.
Sure.
And if an apprentice or prospective apprentice or employer were interested in finding out who their ATR is, they can go to wisconsinapprenticeship.org.
Okay. And is there an application, or is it simply a phone number to contact somebody about getting interested?
The two main ways that people contact us are either through phone or through email. There's a lot of travel involved in our jobs, and so usually email is best.
Okay, sure. Okay, so what qualifications do people need to be successful in the registered apprenticeships?
So apprenticeship is really building up to a lifelong career. And also with apprenticeship, you have a full-time job and you're going to school part-time. And so, what an apprentice needs is to be a good employee, and they need to show up for work, they need to show up on time, and they need to work hard while they're at work. Many of the apprenticeships last between 2 and 5 years, and so there is quite a commitment from the apprentice and the employer to the program.
Okay, so definitely good work habits would be a plus. A viable driver's license, the ability to do the work that you're interested in. It sounds like very similar to what I went through too. So, now, which apprenticeship programs are available in the Chippewa Valley Technical College?
Okay, so Chippewa Valley Technical College is a valuable workforce partner with us, and they offer electric line worker, construction electrician, plumber, sheet metal, and steam fitter instruction. So you take the electric line worker program at CVTC, and it is regionally recognized. We actually have apprentices from other states coming for that program, and it's also done in their newly remodeled Electrical Power Distribution Education Center, or Energy Education Center. With construction electrician, that's actually CVTC's largest apprenticeship with over 100 apprentices, and that is also a 5-year apprenticeship. Moving on to plumbing, that's a 5-year apprenticeship. It's at least 8,000 hours, and it's the fastest growing apprenticeship that CVTC has right now. They actually just added in our section to cover the demands for instruction. Sheet metal, that one is a little bit unique in that it's offered in an industry training center in Cadott. It's brand new, it's built in the last 2 years, and they use a CVTC instructor to do the instruction at their training center. And then steam fitting is another 5-year, 8,000 hour program, and that's very similar to the sheet metal where they use an industry training center with a CVTC instructor. Now, the Bureau of Apprenticeship Standards actually works with all of the technical colleges in Wisconsin. And so just because of regional demand and what employers and apprentices are interested in, not all instruction can be offered everywhere. So one example would be if you wanted to be an industrial electrician, or an employer wanted to put an industrial electrician on, they would have to travel to La Crosse, to Western Technical College, and attend school there. One of the nice things is that the instruction typically only happens 1 day every other week.
Okay.
So it's not too much of a demand on the employers. Another example would be the construction craft laborers. They have a centralized training center in Madison, Wisconsin, so all of the apprentices in the state go to that one training center. And they also, use flexible kind of training schedules to work around what employers need, when they need their employees and whatnot.
Sure enough, sure enough. Now, you're talking about the school, just a little side question here. When you go down for multiple days, is there room for the student, or are they expected to cover that themselves?
That would be up to the individual organization that's sponsoring the training.
The owner of the business.
Right,
Okay.
or if it's attached to a labor union, they may have rules about it and whatnot. So if you look at line work does block construction also, approximately a week at a time.
Sure.
Some of the employers pay for hotel rooms so they can stay the whole week. Sometimes the apprentices travel back and forth depending on distance.
Sure enough. Okay, and that's just a side question that I was interested in. So, now, Rob, how about financial aid? Is that available for interested apprentices?
Typically not. With apprenticeship, the credit load is very low. The apprentice is only taking between 2 and 4 credits per semester. And so if you take that into account, and then you keep in mind that Wisconsin requires that you have a full-time job and you are paid for the time that you're spending in the paid-related instruction, it makes tuition very affordable. It's important to note too, as we kind of mentioned earlier on what employers do and do not pay for. The employer is not required to pay for tuition and books. However, many employers do, or labor organizations will pay for the related instruction. Another thing I'd like to note is that if you're a veteran, you may be able to use GI Bill benefits to pay for living expenses. It typically doesn't cover tuition, but they can get a check for living expenses.
Okay. Now, how about, talking about the books and equipment needed, how about tools? Is there anything set in stone for, say, the electrical workers that they should have? And there again, if they're a veteran, might they be able to get help if it's too expensive? Or do employers help cover that cost? Or are the students, actually the apprentices, actually responsible for them on their own?
Ultimately, it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
So many trades do require specific tools, and it's up to the apprentice working with the employer, working with trade organizations and whatnot to get those required tools. We do not mandate that the employer pay for the tools, so we leave that up to them to negotiate.
Okay. No.
I would like to add that there is the ACAP grants that Wisconsin Apprenticeship offers, and so those are available up to $1,000, and it comes as I believe it's approximately 10% of costs that you can get in your first year. You can get up to $250 reimbursed, and you would have to submit receipts for tuition or tools or things that you needed to complete your apprenticeship. And then at the completion of your apprenticeship, you could get the remainder of the the remainder of $1,000.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. No, very interesting. Okay. Now, I am trying to find employment, and I'm interested in the apprenticeship. How do I determine if the program is a good fit for me? Is there a station where I come in for testing? Is there online testing? What do you have?
Well, really that would be a good place for you to work with the job center and try and figure out what your career interests are and whatnot. Most of the apprenticeships do require a test and minimum scores on the test. The test is called the AccuPlacer test.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that as well.
And that can be provided by a variety of places. CVTC offers it at several of their locations that you can take it. And so if you take that test and you're having trouble mastering or passing some of the skills on it, I would invite you to work with CVTC. They have an excellent adult academic services program there,
okay,
where they can work with you to gain the skills you need to get those minimum scores on the test.
Sure.
If you're having trouble with job-related skills, again, I would encourage you to contact the job center, your local job center of Wisconsin.
Okay.
Another thing I'd like to mention on that too is that recently the Department of Labor, the Federal Department of Labor, awarded Wisconsin a $5 million grant. And this grant is called the Wisconsin Apprenticeship Growth and Enhancement Strategies, which spells out wages.
Sure.
And of course, the S is
Yes.
a dollar sign.
Acronym.
This 5-year wages grant will help train 1,000 new apprentices and upskill 540 apprentices, incumbent workers that are already in the workforce. And the way we plan to do this is through increasing our advanced manufacturing apprenticeships and then moving into new areas such as health and IT. It's important that, or another important thing that this grant does is pay for starting up pre-apprenticeship programs.
Okay.
And so we're looking at starting pre-apprenticeship programs in the area that will help people get the skills they need to be successful in apprenticeship.
Sure.
And again, if prospective apprentices or employers have questions on that, I would encourage them to visit wisconsinapprenticeship.org.
Okay. Rob, one more question I was thinking about asking too, if you don't mind. What are the demographics? Women and men. Is there an equal mixture? Is there more one side or the other? And also, since the downturn in the economy from a couple years ago, and with your limited time in, has the number of applicants actually increased, or do you know if it's gone down?
To the first question, your trades are still dominated by men. And we're working to get more women, and we're seeing more women move into the trades.
Definitely, and as I've seen that too, through our phase of it too, there's definitely more women coming into the field, and if anybody can do the work, they're welcome to come in.
Yes, definitely.
So.
As to with the Great Recession and whatnot, kind of what happened is a lot of places did not get rid of apprentices that they had.
Okay.
But in the years after that, in 8, 9, 10, and even into 11, they did not put new apprentices on.
Okay.
And so right now we're kind of hitting a bottleneck where we need a lot more workers than we have right now. And so you take the licensed trades like electrical or plumbing, they're having trouble. Employers are finding it difficult. A shortage of workers.
Sure.
To find licensed plumbers because there were not enough trained during those periods.
Sure enough, and that's what I was going to say. I know after the collapse, if you will, anytime there's some sort of an economic slowdown, there is a spot where the workers just aren't there. It's happened everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, one more thing I was going to ask too for that: do you do any work with schools? Do you actually go to the high schools to talk to the students, or is it the guidance counselors and the shop teachers, if you will, that help show them the way?
Well, one of the goals of apprenticeship, actually our average age of apprentices has been creeping up. And employers and everyone would also like to get younger people into the workforce, into the trades. And so we have been doing more to work with high schools. Things are just kind of opening up now where it's not as much of a push to just four-year schools and to looking at other opportunities out there. So we have been getting more opportunities to speak at schools, talk with guidance counselors, and work with school groups to get that information out there.
Definitely. And that's where I've known that you go to an average high school, the guidance counselors and the teachers, they know who is most likely to go on to a four-year degree college. They also know that there's going to be some kids that may never go to college. And that's where the technical system with the apprenticeship programs has been a plus, a big boon for the industry and those students.
Well, and it's important to note too, I'd like to add that you know, you take an apprenticeship, you're getting paid from day one. You have a full-time job, and so you're earning while you're learning. And you know, you look at the opposite of going to a 4-year traditional school. Most students need to take out loans and stuff. So when they're done, instead of being on the positive end, they're in debt with their student loans.
Definitely. And there again, like I say, with the teachers, the guidance counselors, it's important to realize which students might not be able to go on to further college. And this would definitely be a viable option for the industry, for us, and for them as well. And that idea of having a paycheck from the right out of the gate is a wonderful thought. So, so Rob, now is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, you know, Wisconsin apprenticeship is the perfect training opportunity for a person that wants a lifelong career in a growing industry typically, and with excellent pay. Prospective apprentices, though, are required to find their employer or sponsor. And so we do not maintain a list of employers that are looking for apprentices. There's a variety of reasons that went into that decision. But I would encourage employers to go to wisconsinjobcenter.com. And if you're not familiar with wisconsinjobcenter.com, this is a useful tool that serves Wisconsin as Wisconsin's public labor exchange. And you know, for employers and job seekers at no cost, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I also encourage prospective apprentices to meet and talk with employers and labor organizations in their field of interest. Plumbing would be a good example. A simple web search would tell you, you know, who are the plumbing contractors in your area. You can go out and talk to them. Almost all plumbers in Wisconsin went through apprenticeship at one time or another to get their license.
Sure.
So they're going to know what you're talking about. Another good resource would be Local 434 in Eau Claire. The Plumbers and Fitters is a union, and they generally work closely with their signatory contractors, and they know who's looking for apprentices.
Okay. And I do know that their building is behind the old Kmart, just off of Claremont there.
Yes.
Yeah. So there again, so if I'm interested in looking in for the field of work, I should find a contractor. I could probably have a request visit with the owner or their head of the shop, if you will.
Yep.
And definitely get some information, see about the viability of them potentially hiring me, and definitely following that pursuit.
Yep. Many places will put you in what they may call a pre-apprentice, or a materials handler is another common name. And what they're doing in that is, you know, they'll have you work for them for 3 or 6 months just to see how you work out, because they are investing a lot in your education. And so they need that time to make sure that it's going to work out.
So by getting your feet wet, helping them out, it gives them a chance to determine if you're a good fit, as well as for yourself.
Definitely.
All right. All right. Well, Rob, I thank you for the opportunity to share this information about the registered apprenticeship in Wisconsin. And that is it for our show today. I'd like to thank Rob for stopping in to talk with us, and the crew, of course, here at the studio. You can use your favorite search engine with keywords Labor Talks and CVC TV to find us on YouTube. Please join us next time on Labor Talks. Thank you.
Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cvctv.org.